Chapter 16, Problem 39. It's on page 746. It asks us to prepare journal entries for 7 transactions. And first they asked us to do it for the fund financial statements and then for the government-wide. But again, I'm going to do them side by side because I think it's easier to see them when you do them side by side. So, in the first transaction, the government sells $900,000 in bonds at face value for the purpose of constructing a warehouse. And so you do have in both the fund financial and the government-wide. In the fund financial, it's probably going to be a capital project fund. It could be general fund, but you'd have to put the money into the capital project and then a transfer into the general fund. So debit to cash and a credit to other financing sources, bond proceeds. Other financing sources, bond proceeds. Remembering that the answer to this is on the website, on the portal, and that is $900,000. So that is your journal entry for A, for the fund financial. For the government-wide, we are going to record the cash, and we're going to do it. This looks a lot like your, excuse me, your for-profit, just cash and bonds payable, $900,000. So remembering that this is accrual, and our governmental funds are all modified accrual. Okay, the second transaction is a $1.1 million contract is signed. This would be like a purchase order. And so there is no government-wide journal entry, but in the general fund, in the capital projects fund, this happens to be still from our warehouse. In the capital project fund, we want to do our encumbrances, and our encumbrances outstanding, and we committed $1.1 million. So that's B. In C, it says a $130,000 transfer of unrestricted funds, it's unrestricted, was made for the eventual payment of the debt in A. This is intra-fund activity over here. There is nothing on the government-wide. It's just between two funds. So the two funds are the debt service and the general fund. We'll do the general fund first because the book does the general fund first. Other financing uses transfers out. Other financing uses transfers out for $130,000 and a credit to cash. And then the related would be the debt service, which is going to account for the money in and out for this. This is still C. Debit cash. And credit to other financing sources transfers in, just the opposite. Other financing sources transfers in $130,000 with no related government-wide journal entry. In D, it says equipment for the fire department is received with a cost of $12,000. When it was ordered, we had anticipated the cost would be $11,800. So in the general fund, we're going to first reverse that encumbrance. This is D. We have general fund. We want to reverse the encumbrances. Outstanding. It was originally thought, and the purchase order was for $11,800. Reverse that and encumbrances, because the encumbrance is no longer needed to hold those funds. Rather, we now have an expenditure for the actual amount, $12,000, and a credit to vouchers payable, $12,000. We do have, in the government-wide, we have a governmental activity. So D, for the governmental activities. We do have an expense. Actually, what were we buying? We were buying a machinery and equipment. Machinery and equipment is a long-term asset.
$12,000, and credit vouchers payable, $12,000.
So that is D. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and erase the board so I can do E, F, and G. E, F, and G. So in E, they tell us supplies to be used are bought for $2,000 cash, and it's the consumption method. Remember, this is a lot like the perpetual inventory method. So in E, most likely in the general fund, inventory, which is looks like an asset, inventory of supplies, and they spent $2,000 and a credit to cash, $2,000. Over on the government-wide, we also record a debit to inventory of supplies and credit cash. So it's exactly the same journal entry. Consumption method again, more like a perpetual inventory method. On E, it says, on F, a state grant of $90,000 is awarded to supplement police salaries. The money is going to be paid to reimburse the government after the supplemental payments have been made to the police officers. So at this point, it's awarded. We haven't received the money. So the police activity is often in the general fund, but this is a special revenue, which is a governmental fund. We're going to do grant receivable. The amount was $90,000, and it is unavailable grant revenue because we haven't received the money yet. Unavailable grant revenue, $90,000. That's in the government-wide, the fund financial. In the government-wide, it is the same kind of thing, but we're going to call it unearned grant revenue. So it is governmental. It's not going to be in a business type. Debit to grant receivable, $90,000, and credit to unearned grant revenue. This is an account we hadn't used before, but we did in this particular one. In G, it says property tax assessments are mailed to citizens. Total assessment is $600,000, but we think that 4%, which is $24,000, is not going to be collected. There's no enforceable legal claim for this money. The government can use it immediately. So what we're going to do, it's going to be on the fund financial. It's going to be a special revenue. It's not special revenue. It's the general fund. Tax assessments are usually in the general fund. Just on the wrong page. Is going to be taxes receivable for the entire amount. We are charging $600,000, and we're going to credit to revenues for the part that we property taxes for the part that we expect to collect, which is the 600 minus the 24, or 576,000. And we're going to credit allowance for uncollectible property taxes, $24,000. Over in the government-wide financial, it is a governmental, not a business type. It's not an enterprise fund. And so we're going to debit. It's going to look exactly the same. I'm not going to write it up here, but it's exactly the same journal entry as that one. So that is the answer to Chapter 16, Problem 39.